Um, Hello, my name's Alan. I had a video before I talked about the planes of existence in the galaxy. Um, Basically, our galaxy is a revolving vortex, which is a cone shape, like this. Now, you're only seeing the bottom of the cone. What we can see is the bottom of the cone in what's called first, second and third density, or what's called the first, second and third electroplanar tonals. What we can't see, or what we haven't been able to see in the past, is the higher levels. Because the higher levels, the wave construction is different. And because the wave construction is different, what I call electroplanar atomic solidity or electroplanar mass is different. Most people don't realize that waves are not two-dimensional. When you see them on an oscilloscope or any sort of electrical measuring equipment, you see the sinusoidal, like a sinusoidal wave or something, and they go on about the frequency, the hertz, how many pulses there are a second. They go on about the amplitude, which is how wide the wave is, positive, negative. They're going about the modulation, which is basically the shape of the wave. You can have square waves, sawtooth waves, waves with spikes on eddy currents, or transverse waves, which are side currents. But what isn't known is these frequencies are made up of tubules, which are three-dimensional in structure, which are winding and unwinding vortices made out of energy ribbons. Now, these energy ribbons originally came from the dark light field, what some people call the consciousness field. Walter Russell called it mind. It's a bad description, actually, because this energy field pulses at 22 trillion times a second, which is much higher than anybody can really imagine compared to the field here. The Schumann resonance frequency, which was first discovered by Wilfred Otto Schumann, and he published these figures in 1952, his theory in 1952 about the extra low frequency of the Earth. He actually discovered that the frequencies of the Earth are the low frequencies are about 7, have a baseline of about 7. It's actually 7, 14, 21 and 28. He discovered 4 baselines. And this is extremely slow compared to the dark light field, which is at 22 trillion times a second. This is because there's been a lot of wave compression, which also affects the internal tubule wave alignments within. I know this is heavy going, but we live in the bandwidth of frequencies, billions of frequencies, which have a certain frequency, amplitude, modulation and bandwidth, and this is what creates gases, liquids and solids. Now, outside of that, there's a ton of stuff that still exists, because it's in a different wave construction and frequency, not just frequency. We can't see it. And this is why we can't see the other planes of existence within our own vortex galaxy. We're only seeing the base of the cone, or part of the base of the cone. There's actually 11 different dimensions in our galaxy. If you go through all the ancient texts, like the Vedic texts in India, they talk about these 11 dimensions in the ancient writings. Now, people didn't understand why or what they were, because they didn't have the scientific knowledge, especially during what's called the Kali Yuga era, which is the age we've just left 326 years ago, which made humans very low in intelligence, because a neuron net within the brain didn't work very well, because we've got this really low frequency field here. But now that we're in this ascending sort of elliptical sort of orbit, and we're moving into a higher frequency zone of the galaxy. The galactic center energies are hitting with, and these are going to affect the neural net of humans, and it's going to affect the neurons in the brain. They're going to fire much more efficiently, and humans are going to become much more intelligent as time goes on, as this era goes through in what's called the Kali-Dwapara era, or Dwapara era, the Kali-Dwapara era. Anyway, going back to the 11 planes of existence, there's these 11 planes, and we've just peeped our head out into what's called the fourth plane of existence. We're actually phasing in and out of the fourth plane of existence as we get hit by these, people call it, the scientists call it cosmic energy. You could call it that, but basically it's pulling all the subatomic and atomic structures upwards. It's uplifting everything, making the spin rates a lot faster, and also creating greater alignment subatomically and at atomic level as well. What people don't realise is atoms don't all have the same energy in. A typical example is carbon 12, 13 and 14. Atoms are not the same construction. They have averages or means, which is in the periodic table, but there's energetic, they're in different energetic states. Some atoms are, some chemicals, or some elements I should say, have different energy states, like carbon does. Carbon has carbon 12, 13, 14, which is called radioactive carbon, which really should be called radiative carbon, because it's losing energy. It's losing a lot more energy than carbon 13 is and carbon 12 is. Now, the carbon atoms are going to be affected by this energy coming in, and I personally hypothesize that we're going to move from carbon 12 animals or beings into carbon 13 beings, and I think this is going to affect the plants and animals and all. This has happened before, a long time ago, but things are going to be a bit different this time because of external events in our solar system. There's a lot going on that you don't hear about, or even on the internet, and certainly not on the mainstream media. Anyway, there's these 11 levels, and we're just picking out. And this is why the James Webb telescope and other telescopes are picking all this new stuff up, because instead of being at 7 hertz, or just over 7 hertz, our extra low frequencies, which is a good measure of how high we've got the Schumann resonance frequency, we're actually up above 35 at times. And this is, like I say, this is going to affect plant, animal biology, human biology. It's also warming the globe up. A lot of global warming is not being driven by the CO2, although CO2 does drive and carbon does drive warming in the atmosphere. It's not the only driver. The sun's heating up, and so is all the planets, because of this energy coming in, this cosmic energy, because we're moving into a higher energy zone of the galaxy. So we've got these 11 planar levels, and there's a lot of things live on the other planar levels which we can't see. A lot of these visitors we've had have been from what's called 4th and 5th density, which are the 4th and 5th electroplanar tonals, and we haven't been able to see them because their atomic structure and subatomic structure is very different here, especially the internal structure. But we're going to start to see a lot more of them, because we're moving into their sort of energetic planes, if you like. So this is why people, I think, are seeing a lot more of these UFOs zipping around, because we were stuck in a lower plane of existence. We're just peeking our head out intermittently in a sort of phasing zone. It's sort of a transient zone. It's going to last for about, it lasts for about 30 years. I think we've got about 26 or 27 years to go before we're out of this phase, and then we'll be in what's called the first subtonal of the fourth major tonal, which is the fourth electroplanar tonal of the galaxy. Now, the fourth major tonal has got 12, it's divided into 12 sections, whereas 3D was divided into 7 sections. And the reason for this is because wave complexity becomes more and more complex as you go through higher up through the dimensions, because the spin rate is a lot quicker. The alignment of the waves is a lot more compact, and this increases what's called fractal wave nesting. All the waves sort of slot in together like you would see it wound on an electric motor. Instead of being all over the place and clashing and bumping into each other, they're all nicely aligned. So there's a lot more information pouring through the subatomic and atomic fields, and this information causes what Cliff High has termed hyper-novelty or complexity. This is why there's more levels on for what's called 4D, or the fourth electroplanar tonal. There's also more complexity. There's probably more complexity of sound, and I think there's going to be more complexity of light as well, photons, including colours. I think certain colours will appear later on. I mean, a lot later on, because we've just gone across the boundary. Colours that people have never seen before, which seems bizarre. That we've had the main primary colour, the main colours, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and the rainbow, and a mixture of the primary colours. But there is actually light outside of this, so if we become able to see it, we probably will see other colours as we move into what's called 4D, or the fourth electroplanar tonal. I haven't gained this information easily. This information has been gained over the space of 24 years of work. I've done a lot of people's work, including Nikola Tesla. Like I say, I put a lot of stuff about Nikola Tesla in the mid-2000s when people didn't really know much about it, which didn't make me very popular at the time. And I've also studied a lot of other scientists like Walter Russell, Oliver Heaviside, Victor Schauberger, to do with vortex fields. Dan Winter's excellent, electrical engineer who is a biophysiologist at the University of California. His work is excellent if you check it out. And there's a lot of other scientists I've looked at, like Peter Guy Manner's work on cymatics and sound, where they have the construction, wave construction and sound. It produces different patterns on what's called a Clandry plate, which is vibrated with sound. You put sand on it, and it produces different shapes depending on what frequency there is in the sound, because it affects the patterns, the geometric patterns, which is what people call sacred geometry. The sacred geometry is what produces what's called the platonic solids. The platonic solids are the main shapes you see all the time, like a cube, pyramid shape, tetrahedron, dodecahedron, icosahedron. The architect Buckminster Fuller produced a lot of stuff in the 60s and 70s, which is also very interesting to look at, which is to do with the platonic solids. But all this sacred geometry comes from subatomic and atomic constructs, which are all mathematic. They can be worked out mathematically. I mean, I'm no genius on mathematics. I'm just amateur, really. I'm just basically a researcher who's looked into this for a long, long time. It's all based on the golden mean ratio and the Fibonacci sequence, which are very interesting to look at. Anyway, that's the video. I've told you about 11 levels in the galaxy. There's actually 12 levels, possible 12 levels in each galaxy, but our galaxy isn't fully constructed yet. it's pretty close to being fully constructed. It's more than 3/4 of the way through the construction, because galaxies have a beginning, middle point and an end. In the midpoint they've got 12 levels, and then they start to dissipate. Everything has a beginning, middle and an end. The sun does, the planet does, so does everything else. But it all comes out of this what's called the dark light field, which is zipping around at an incredible rate, much faster than the speed of light, which we've been told is 300,000 kilometers an hour, which is a load of garbage. It's only 300,000 kilometers within our own vortex, which is coming from the sun, where there's a lot of things getting in the way of the photons moving. There's there's quite a dense field in this vortex around the sun to plough through, and these photons are being slowed down to 300,000 kilometers an hour outside of the solar system, and certainly in the dark parts of the galaxy. What they call the dark light, what Nikola Tesla called the dark light field, the rate of the energy ribbons is an incredible rate, way higher than 300,000 kilometers an hour, and it's only because of the field compression and the slowing down of this energy, which, by the way, creates all subatomics and all atomics, that this acceleration slows down. It slows down. Walter Russell called it motion in inertia. He called it the field motion and inertia. That was a generative side, and the other side is when atoms and subatomics are being constructed. He called it motion and opposition, i.e. waves which are being forced together by wave compression. And this is what creates everything. But there's different rules to the game. Electroplanar tonal physics is extremely complex, so which I only understand the very, very basics. Unfortunately, our physics professors understand virtually none of it, because they don't know nothing about the dark light field, which Nikola Tesla had cracked but in 1900, but I think a lot of his work was either destroyed or hidden, which was unfortunate, which basically threw the human race back at least 120 years. But this is all going to come out over time. Anyway, that's my video. I've told you quite a lot of information. Check these scientists out that I've mentioned before, and you'll find out what I'm getting at. My name's Alan Watson. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.